Hello guys. So this is probably my 30th take. I stopped all the videos that I recorded before this because I was going on and on and on about things. There's a lot to talk about, and we will do that in the coming days. I will do that. I love talking, and I'm glad I finally started this YouTube channel so that I can get a outlet to all my thoughts. And I think this is going to be like therapy for me because whatever thoughts I have in my mind are not always thoughts that people I know in real life want to hear. Like if I want to talk about Sushant Singh Rajput, for example, it's you have to agree it's a very depressing topic. Like thinking about it alone is a different thing, but when you actually start talking to people about it, it becomes so real that even now when I'm talking to you all about it, and I was revisiting some old chats when I first saw the news of Shant and stuff for this video. I was going through some old chats, and it was all just coming back to me, and it's actually very saddening. So um, anyway, the reason I'm doing this is because I kind of want my uh, point of view to go out, get out there. And the reason why I feel the way I feel right now is this, that some events unfolded in front of me, you know, and there have been times when I believed in the suicide narrative, and I've been completely unbiased. I'm not biased towards Bollywood, nor am I biased towards Sushant Singh Rajput. Um, I was never a diehard big fan of his or something, but I still remember after Kai Poche, like the coincidence is that he actually died. His character died in Kai Poche, and when he died in Kai Poche, I was quite sad. Even that last scene when he turns back and he, looks at the camera, and you kind of feel it. You somehow I felt sad about that character dying. And then even Dhoni, when I saw Dhoni, to be very honest, I was always very um, reluctant about Sushant Singh Rajput, like because you obviously don't know he's going to die tomorrow, right? So you're just very like reluctant about this person who's come from TV, and I don't know why I had such an image of him, but I was not very fond of him, but I was like neutral about it, you know. And when I saw Dhoni, after the first 10 or 15 minutes, I couldn't see Sushant Singh Rajput. It was just Dhoni in my mind, and I have to give that to that guy. Even then, I had told my friends that this is amazing. This guy is like a great actor, and then you're just okay about that. You're just glad about the fact that, oh, great, there's this great actor in the country, and you move on, right? You don't become a fan. I don't know why I never became a fan as such of him. Anyway, point is that in June, when this news came out, I'm going to show you the exact time actually when the news came out, and how I got to know about it. So this is June 14th, my mom's chat. Um, if you can see, June 14th, Bollywood actor Sushant Singh Rajput commits suicide at 34 Times of India. And even after reading Times of India, I asked her, verified? And she said, Neville. And I said, very shocking. So, Neville is basically a guy who stays in our building. He works at Z. Oh, no, sorry, he works at Sony. So, there's no reason why he would post something unverified on the building group. And when she said Neville, that's when I became sure of it, because just a few days back, Rishi Kapoor and Irfan Khan had died, and we had got to know through Neville only, you know. So I mean, I was obviously shocked. Like, I couldn't believe it. I had to go on Google and, find out whether it is actually real. And then I came to know it's real. I posted on my friends group, and my friends were like, "What? Very sad news, man. This and that." First reaction that everyone had was like, "Oh my god!" Like, no way. But the thing is, here's the important thing. When the police and the forensic people tell you and tell the newspapers rather that this is a suicide, you believe it, because what other choice do you have? As in, if there's foul play, there are some criminals who've done something, they're trying to get away with it. The police usually comes and they look at all these things. Okay, you know is the mark U shape or V shaped? Is there any suicide note? Are there any diaries which can reveal any information? You know, um, are there any marks on the body? All these things are things that the police and the forensic do, and you always assume that these things happen. When a death happens, this happens automatically, right? So if the police has not registered or reported any foul play, then there's no foul play, because why will the police hide foul play, right? I mean, that's where my mind was at that time. And I think that's where a lot of people's mind is still, who don't believe that Sushant was murdered. So that's what initially happened to me. I believed it. I believed that it's a suicide. But here's the interesting part. So I think I don't exactly remember how much time it took me to doubt this whole thing, but I think the next milestone was when I saw a picture. Because I think since I heard the news, whenever you hear someone's news, like someone's hung himself or some actor, you always are curious about how they must have done it, how that room must have looked. You know, a guy who you've seen on the big screen, how he must be looking, in his final moments, hung like that over there. I mean, I know it's sad, but all humans have that curiosity, I think. And I had been searching the images on Google, and then one day, I just saw that image, of him dead, and I didn't realize anything from the image, by the way. But one thing that I remember thinking was that I have seen some real hanging videos, and usually, and from what I've heard also, usually people foam at their mouth. There's some foaming at the mouth that happens. The eyes kind of come out a bit. The tongue definitely comes out. The tongue always comes out. And the person goes into an entire seizure, and they spaz out basically when they hang themselves. And another thought that I had at that time was, uh, why will this guy hang himself? I mean, wouldn't poison be a better, more conclusive, and a less painful way to die? Or, you know, the fact that he was so fit as well, and he had abs, and his core body strength was good. um, Usually they say that a fit person, if he tries hanging himself, he will end up eventually kicking out of it and saving himself, because the moment the oxygen supply to the brain stops, your body goes into survival mode, and you save yourself. That all those thoughts of committing suicide and all are gone, because your survival instinct takes over. And only if you're not strong enough to pull yourself out of that, you know the the noose around your neck, only then you're probably going to end up dying. Otherwise, most people, there are a lot of people who have jumped out and probably pulled themselves up from the noose and saved themselves, or shouted, or tried to do something, or at least kick around a little. So that was also one thought that had come to my mind. And then I started searching some videos. So I have always been interested in murder mystery novels, and I've read all of Agatha Christie novels, and my mom dad also. I think I've inherited it from them. So my mom dad always watch murder mystery stories and everything on, movies and shows, on Prime or Netflix, everywhere. So I've seen a lot of this crime, murder mysteries, and all these genres. And one thing that I know is suicide is not always suicide. This is like a very famous plot, which, sorry, this is a very famous, you know, plot design which a lot of writers choose, or a lot of writers write about, where someone dies and it looks like they've killed themselves, and there's a gun in their hand. They've shot themselves at the temple, so it's a suicide. But then the detective comes, and there's a gun in the dead person's hand, but the detective still doubts it. He says that someone must have put the gun in his hand. you know that's how a normal scene is looked at, even a suicide scene. So when someone says, or when something looks like suicide, the detectives are not dumb that they will go like, oh अच्छा suicide है क्या, ठीक है okay हम लोग जा रहे हैं. They usually have their own take on things. They're like, oh, you say it's suicide, let us decide what it is. Okay, then they analyze everything, and then they come onto a conclusion. So I had this doubt in my mind since a very long time that this is probably, um, some foul play is there. But the the real doubt I had was, why is no one talking about it? And if no one's talking about it, if the police haven't reported it, then nahi hoga. Why will the police be involved? That was the part which really confused me in the beginning. You know, um, that the authorities seem to be indifferent, right? And if the authorities are so indifferent, then he must have committed suicide, because they must have checked everything, right? So this is the first thing that I wanted to establish, that this is what um, is interesting about this case, because since the beginning, the first time you heard of it, imagine if you had read, if the news article had come that Sushant Singh Rajput dies under mysterious circumstances, or Sushant Singh Rajput found dead at his home, reason of death unclear. you know if this was the first news that had ever come out, trust me, almost everyone would have doubted, and not been sure about this at all. Like, a lot of friends of mine who I was actually thinking that this will be obvious too, even they have been believing in the suicide narrative. And the reason for that is because there are so many details in this case that if you don't think about all those details, and if you don't know about all those details, and if you don't go out of your way like I did to find out about all those details, then you're not going to know. It's going to look like suicide. Like I said, like this whole story I told you till now, where I was believing in the suicide narrative in the first 2-3 days. And a lot of my friends and a lot of people I know are still on those first 3 days, because they've not gone beyond those 3 days. And after those 3 days, I started finding out stuff, and then वो सारे videos शुरू हो गए थे of people talking about that Sushant was murdered. Sushant was murdered. Basically, YouTube पे I would just start writing Sushant Singh Rajput murder, and that's when I started getting all these videos, and then I started seeing all that, and I remember thinking about this one thing, when it seemed like suicide, and I was just like, you know, I was considering myself crazy to even think that it's a murder. I remember thinking that the last thing that is required right now in 2020 is a murder, or something like, not last thing, but I remember, I mean, not in a sadistic way, but last thing I said was, since I've always read about murder mysteries, and there's not been any real big murder mystery which was like a suicide but actually it's a murder kind of first story that I have ever seen in my life, and not at least some big Bollywood star like this. This entire story is very filmy if you'll, you know, if you'll think about it. Entire thing, everything about it is something that we usually see in these, you know, movies, or rather novels actually. Novels में होता है ऐसा type का stories. It's very very larger than life. Um, so